Well, good morning everyone. Today is an exciting day because today we're going to be building a bridge through Eagle Thermostat. But first, I'm Lucas, I'm a junior here at Boston College, and this is Leonard, he's also a junior. Leonard is currently abroad studying in Singapore, which is why I will be presenting on our behalf. So, I mentioned that we were going to be building a bridge through Eagle Thermostat. And we are going to achieve that by focusing on a small particular problem here at BC. To start at least. So whether summer or winter, whether hot or cold, there is always a classroom at BC that is either unbearably hot or far too cold. And that is why in 2021, environmental studies students Daniel, Emmy, and Casey decided to investigate students' temperature preferences here at BC. And they discovered that over 50% of students are unsatisfied with the ambient temperatures in their rooms. It turns out that, on average, BC is overcorrecting their temperatures here at BC. That is why, so that basically means that in the summer, students are feeling too cold, and in the winter, students feel too hot. And this has become an expensive affair. Since 2020, average temperature costs in Boston, Massachusetts have risen by approximately 35%. And if we use data from BC's utility bill, we can estimate that this corresponds to a roughly $7 million increase in energy costs. Now, as climate change grows more profound, meaning that we'll have hotter summers and cooler winters, BC will end up cooling more, and they will end up heating more. And that being one of the many reasons why getting energy efficiency right, and getting it right now, is crucial. Now, Leonard is here to discuss more about the specific energy efficiency measures that we have here at BC currently.
If you're currently in 245 Beacon Street, you're in the privileged position of sitting in the most advanced and energy efficient building on the Chestnut Hill campus. The Office of Sustainability has a goal of all new construction achieving at least LEED Silver, which is an acceptable measure of sustainability, although it is a little unambitious. The key is that 245 Beacon Street is able to regulate temperature far more effectively than other buildings on campus. And this alone, in combination with vacancy sensors, according to a comprehensive study at UC San Diego, delivers energy savings of 10 to 15% of HVAC-related electricity costs. And from speaking with Terrence Leahy, the Director of Engineering and Energy Management at BC, the biggest challenge to keeping consistent temperatures is that historically buildings were not designed to maintain these temperatures. Adding on to that Gaston and Fulton are two pipe systems, meaning that they can either heat or cool, but not both at once, means that when they're switching from heating to cooling, temperatures can wildly fluctuate, significantly impacting student comfort. And if BC wanted to, well, we could renovate these buildings, but to do that, construction would likely last far longer than just the academic breaks, and we'd have to close, well, no gas in, no way. The biggest hurdle really to improving sustainability on campus is retrofitting old buildings with new systems, while those old buildings are still being used. And in Gaston and Fulton, the two buildings that really need renovating, one-day ranges of temperature can range from 62 degrees Fahrenheit to 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
So as Leonard mentioned, given that the ideal energy efficiency measures are not implementable at BC at this point, we propose Eagle Thermostat. Eagle Thermostat, the way we envision this working is that we would have an Eagle Thermostat QR code implemented throughout every classroom here at BC, but particularly in the least energy efficient buildings such as Gaston and Fulton Hall. This is a sample of this QR code. And if you would care to join me, if we envision that we are currently seated in Gaston 301 on a regular winter day with our thick winter sweaters, yet the building has been heated to a miserable 77 degrees Fahrenheit, we don't have to fret, as now all we do is scan a QR code, and it would take us to the following interface in case you didn't scan it. And then here we can select how we're feeling, too hot or too cold. In our case, given that I'm now sweating bullets in gas in 301, I would select too hot. And then this data is collected in our Google Firebase. So on the left, we can see all the buildings we would in theory be integrated with. If we click on Gaston Hall, we can see all the anonymous reports to date. And if we click on one of those anonymous reports, we can see the room and whether that individual reports it too hot or too cold. Now, our ultimate vision for Eagle Thermostat is that Eagle Thermostat will be integrated with the current existing Johnson control systems across campus. That way, when we reach a certain threshold of reports, and there appears to be a consensus as to whether it's too cold or too hot, the building could auto-regulate itself through the Johnson control system. And this, of course, would be an improvement to the current system, which involves submitting a work order and then having a facilities member go to the site in person, check the temperature, make sure that there's nothing broken, and then update the temperature manually, which of course could take 2 days or so. Whereas in our case, we could achieve this effect in a few hours potentially. And the best part is that following Stephen Bentley from Johnson Controls, this is actually possible, implementing Eagle Thermostat with the Johnson Controls system. Now, of course, this would still be one of our challenges, as we would need to ensure that the code that we write to implement with the Johnson control system is flawless and integrates seamlessly. And in addition to that, we would, of course, have to go through the different BC administrations to actually gain approval to implement this. However, the important part is that in theory, it is possible. And where there is a will, there's a way. Our primary challenge, though, with Eagle Thermostat would be getting people to actually use it on a regular basis. As of course, the more perceived temperature reports that we have, the more reliable our data. We want to make sure that we're not correcting a temperature that doesn't need to be corrected. And for that reason, we envision Eagle Thermostat to become a mobile app. Thereby, we could actually gamify the app so that when users report data, they earn points, and those points can later be redeemed for, let's say, a small discount on a Tully Bowl or a small discount at the bookstore and so on and so forth, which also incentivizes on-campus spending, just a side note. But the point is that we could even enable location-based tracking on this app if the user allows us, and that way we can sense what building they're in at any time. That way, if we do obtain a certain number of reports from gas and hall that it's too hot in a given day, we could, in theory, send a notification to the users that we currently detect to be in gas and hall, asking them to confirm this or deny it. That way, further increasing the reliability of our data. In essence, Eagle Thermostat would be like Waze, but for temperature here at BC. Now, the real question remains, is it worth it for us to implement Eagle Thermostat here on campus? Well, Leonard?
Assuming our system is able to eliminate close to all overheating and overcooling in buildings such as Gaston and Fulton, is that BC could be looking at savings of $414,000 on the low end to almost $1 million saved every single year. And based on data from the EPA on emissions of natural gas and the grid emissions factor of the Massachusetts electricity grid, is that could be saving almost 1,000 to 2.2 thousand metric tons of carbon emissions. That's the equivalent of 545 American households. That's almost 10% of BC's student body. And I want to emphasize, while these are only estimates, all of the data used came either from BC directly, from BC through the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, or from data released by the EPA or the EIA, the Energy Information Administration. For detailed calculations and fact-checking, we'll have a link at the end of this presentation. But is Eagle Thermostat really an initiative worth pursuing? Really, a common framework on the success of sustainability initiatives is a triple bottom line. Are we delivering a solution that's good for people, profit, and planet? And really, we are. We're delivering a solution that improves student comfort in classrooms, leading to better educational outcomes. And we're also delivering a solution that's good for the planet by reducing BC's emissions to the equivalent of 545 American households. And we're also delivering a solution that may save BC nearly $1 million per year at current electric costs. And all of this at no added cost to the systems BC already has. But what's the bigger picture? See, how does this fit into BC's larger mission and vision for the Office of Sustainability? Well, currently, the Office of Sustainability has initiatives that fall into either one or the other category: institutional initiatives and student initiatives. To simplify, by student initiatives, we mean student-led or student-facing initiatives, such as the Green Ambassador Program, Fulton Beehive, or BC Shares. Initiatives that are, well, feel-good initiatives, And really today there isn't much intersection between the complex frameworks BC uses to assess sustainability and the student initiatives that exist. Well, no comprehensive way, and the current system looks something like this. Students want to be sustainable, but a fragmented system of clubs, undergraduate government, and departmental initiatives limit our ability to reduce our carbon footprint as much as we may want. And getting a clear overview of what's happening at BC is tough. But it doesn't have to be this way. This is where we see the Office of Sustainability, a bridge, a translator of sorts that takes the many initiatives of students and transforms it into clear insights for administrators and departments, many of whom already seek to improve campus sustainability, such as energy and engineering, which want to see many buildings upgraded and improve campus efficiency. And on the flip side, the Office of Sustainability should take institutional initiatives such as participation in AASHE's STARS and translate these obscure rating systems into clear insights for students, identifying areas students can make an impact and where involvement is lacking.
So as Leonard mentioned, this is where we envision having the Office of Sustainability, a bridge. And Eagle Thermostat would be the first stone of that bridge, a stepping stone per se, to gain traction and to habituate this habit of students for the first time in a while actually having a voice in a sense to directly communicate with the broader BC institutional initiatives and goals, all through the Office of Sustainability. Now, of course, in the future, this could then lead to the rebranding of Eagle Thermostat as Eagle Sustainability, which should be a broader platform whereby students, as we said, have a direct link to the broader institutional goals and initiatives, all through the Office of Sustainability, and vice versa as well. And in addition to that, you could even brand this entire platform as being a place for students to connect with each other about sustainability, to communicate with the office, ask questions, and so on and so forth. The real goal here is to make the place of the Office of Sustainability on campus more apparent, to give them more footing and to make it easier for students to actually engage with them when it comes to sustainability matters. In essence, what we're really trying to do is to just improve the voice not only of students, but also faculty when it comes to sustainability. We'd like to thank everyone that was involved with us here today, especially Terrence Leahy and Stephen Bradley, and of course, Patrick, thank you, for giving us all the data that we needed for this presentation. And if you are interested in our calculations, you can find them here as well. And of course, that was our full bridge that I teased earlier today that we were going to build with you today. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, thank you so much for this presentation. How this will have direct potential feedback of the HVAC systems into the internet and in your app. How are you going to deal with adversarial situations like trolling, hacking, or have other safeguards?
Well, of course, that would be one of the challenges that we need to address with this. The fact is that Johnson Controls does have some of these automation systems as well. We would simply be integrating with those automation systems, which of course already provides us a certain level of protection through that, since we would be dealing with a broader institution. And we just simply provide our data instead of the traditional work order system data to then be used for this automation aspect.
How do students do the too hot, too cold calls today? How would you go about reporting classrooms too hot, too cold?
So currently, if we thought that 245 Beacon Street right now was too cold, you would go into the traditional work order system that we have in place. I forget what it's called right now, but you would submit a work order through that, and then usually if more than one student reports something, BC would send a facilities staff member to the site to check the temperature, and then they would manually adjust it. But of course, since that is labor intensive, that process can take 2 to 3 days sometimes. Whereas our system would simply, in theory, in a few hours, the temperature could be auto-regulated.
And it wouldn't necessarily be limited to students. You could have faculty use the system as well.
Anyone really, students or faculty, or I guess even in theory guests if they saw the QR code.
Thanks for the presentation. I think I heard something about sending push push notifications to people who are in the rooms. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, of course. So this is of course only if the user actually enables location-based tracking by the app. But in theory, to just improve the reliability of our data and get as much data into our Firebase so that we have reliable data on which to actually act. If people are reporting on a given day that gassing is too hot or that gassing is too cold, then we would be able to track which of our users are in gassing that day or at that current time, and then send them a push notification asking them as to, is it really too hot or is it really too cold? And that way, as with Waze, we're basically ensuring that, first of all, that the temperature that was reported isn't just a troll, as you were saying, but that it is actually true. That's what we're trying to do, get as much data as possible to prevent that. And the second benefit of that is, let's say we have now auto-regulated the temperature and it has been regulated down. Now we could actually follow up with the users and ensure that this was actually a positive change and that the room does feel more comfortable.
I was just curious about the costs of all this. Like, would you guys have like students running the software, or would you guys like hire people to do it? I'm just curious about that.
So students can definitely code the software. The only real challenge is making sure that the integration with the Johnson control system is flawless. That will take a little more tinkering, but if you collaborate with Johnson Controls, that's not too big of an issue. Realistically, students would code this, they would run this, but then we would see this eventually just being transitioned, of course, to the actual BC institution or the Office of Sustainability, who would then take over control of that. Yes.
Do the old buildings like Fulton, Gasson have the ability to be climate controlled at a classroom level? That you mentioned the old two-pipe system, or is it the heat is on or the cool is on?
Yeah.
So that I love the idea. I'm just wondering if you can tweak classroom A and not classroom B, or if you guys are aware of that or not.
Of course. So of course, as you noted, in 245 Beacon Street, that's really easy. But in Gasson or Fulton, the good thing is that there's fans in every classroom, which we spoke with Terrence Leahy. It is possible to regulate these fans.
Okay.
And of course, you can also turn off the heat. So realistically, it's a bit trickier in Gasson and Fulton. Having that classroom-specific response is a little harder, but it is possible by decreasing the fan speed, increasing the fan speed. But overall, generally, if it is too hot in Gasson 301, it's most likely going to be too hot in Gasson 101 or Gasson 301 or Gasson 201. And for that reason, those buildings would be more of a
Might be more of a building versus individual
regulation.
Okay, thank you.
One thing that strikes me with HVAC is just the immense complexity of these things. Like a southern-facing room with lots of windows will get hotter than something northern. It goes on and on. Like number of people in the room, blah blah.
Yeah.
How much of that is handled by Johnson Controls versus Eagle Sustainability? Also, like things like time of day. It strikes me as an enormously complex issue.
It would definitely require a lot of thinking through to make sure that everything is being integrated seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the way it works, of course, is that BC has their standard that they're hoping to achieve with regard to an optimal temperature for students, which I believe is around 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So then if it goes above that or it goes below that, they'll adjust how much they're heating or cooling. In our case, if we're really going to focus on the sunlight aspect and what room is too hot, what room is too cold, in all honesty, that is something that we would need to actually do testing on once we unroll this application to see to what extent is this even an issue in Gaston and Fulton, and determine is the classroom on the north side really that much hotter than the classroom on the south side? And if that does turn out to be a significant problem, then we would have to, of course, consider that in our coding interface and see how we can regulate the temperatures in those classrooms individually. But for right now, having this, we're basically just doing what BC is already doing, except optimizing it, which would lead us to the savings that we discussed, of course.
I had another question.
Yeah.
Were you guys thinking of expanding this to like dorms as well, especially with the freshman dorms where you can't regulate the temperature?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely an avenue that we would want to expand this to. We would see it as a BC as a whole kind of initiative, but we would hope to start in Gaston and Fulton because those are primarily the buildings that are facing this issue.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you.
Thanks.